Hey everybody, as promised, I will show you guys how to make a snowflake kind of like the one that we've been looking at in class to make for the holiday program. All you really need to get started is a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. This is printer paper, which works a little bit better because it's thinner, easier to fold and cut. And you're going to need some scissors and markers or some colored pencils. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of paper and we're going to fold it and then cut it to make a square. And the way I do that is I take that bottom right corner and I fold it up so that this side and this side of my paper meet. Now I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to trim this whole piece off at the top. Once you've trimmed that piece and you're looking at a bigger triangle, you're going to take this right-hand side and you're going to fold it over to the left-hand side so these 2 points end up meeting just like that. And you're going to repeat that same type of fold, except this time you're going to take the top and fold it down to the bottom, kind of like this. And before you start cutting, open it all back up. And the cool thing about this style of cutting and folding is that all those folds will now meet in the center point right there. So if you recall what we talked about in class with color, specifically tie-dye, we have a method that we can use to color to actually look like tie-dye, kind of like this. As I color like this, my left hand is rotating my paper and my right hand is coloring. Once we've got all of our piece of paper colored, we're going to use those folds and carefully refold it back into our triangle shape. Once we're folded back into the triangle shape, to make the cuts that we saw in class, make sure you've got a folded edge here on this side and make sure you've got more folded edges down here at the bottom. If you're looking at this and yours looks like mine, you should have 1, 2, 3 folded edges on the bottom. Now all you're really going to do to make that complex looking cut is actually just cut out little notches, little triangle shapes. And each time you cut one, turn your paper and repeat on the next side as well. And then turn it back the other way. And keep cutting just like that all the way out. With this style of cutting, make sure, since you're sometimes going to be cutting close to your fingers, please make sure that your fingers are not in the way of the scissors. So I'm going to keep cutting on this and then I'll open it back up and show you what my final finished piece looks like. Now I'm going to carefully unfold. Sometimes your paper where you cut can stick together, so go slow and be gentle as you're opening this thing all the way back up. And there's my finished cut. Now the thing we talked about with this particular design in class was taking that idea of a simple snowflake on white paper just kind of being cut randomly and actually applying some art principles and elements to it by using a form of balance that we talk about in art called radial balance. And in this case, it looks like everything is radiating out from the center point. And if you look at that little triangle right there where my fingertip is, this is a good example of radial balance because as that triangle moves farther from the center point where the yellow marker is, it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Even the style of coloring, as I moved away from the center point, my bands of color got bigger. So what we have happening here is a little bit cooler version of a snowflake that utilizes radial balance because everything is radiating out from that center point right there, kind of like an explosion.